Jack Ebling here with Lindsay Huddleston. It's another Press Pass preview, and we are here at Breslin Center. I was here for the first half and then left and went to Fox 47 and did our show, which will air at 11 o'clock. That was with Tom Crawford, Rico Beard, and Doug Warren. Meanwhile, you watched Michigan State play some pretty good basketball, but there was much more than a basketball game tonight.
Sometimes we get so caught up in sports and we forget that life goes on. And to deal with the tragedy of Cassius Winston losing his brother Zachary was just the last 24 hours. But Michigan State also lost a brother too, because Zachary was really a part of this team. He came around a lot, and Tom Izzo really showed great leadership in the way he talked to the media, about how he talked to the team, and just what he kind of empowered all of us to do as it relates to life and not just sports and basketball.
Team Winston, one of the closest families you will find. They feed on each other, and we saw less than 2 weeks ago Zach here when Michigan State had the exhibition game against Albion. Zach and Kai. Zach could not play in that game, and but he went around. He was taking pictures, and he could not have been happier. We didn't know the things that were affecting him, the demons, and when you have something like a suicide at a train track, you know that a lot of things have been eating away at someone for a long time. But Lindsay, I'm struck by humanity and inhumanity on a night like this. The humanity of the team, the crowd, the moment of silence, the love that was shown, the fact that Tom Izzo could not thank the fans enough for what they did tonight, and the inhumanity when you have racial harassment, KKK style, and you have a box and it looks like a coffin left in front of someone's door, or you have the worst aspects of social media come into play.
Right. You know, you're talking about the experience that Zachary had on campus at his school over a year, and how that has been a challenge for him for some time, because along with that issue and the game and just kind of being in the shadow of his brother who is in the national spotlight, I think one thing, this issue, and one positive that can come from such a tragic loss, is that we can reassess our relationship with social media. We can reassess our relationship with our phones, and it's not necessarily to blame social media, because it has its positives and its negatives, but I think that many of us aren't really equipped to deal with the toxicity that can be prevalent there, and we get caught in this 360-degree cycle, and we don't break the cycle, and we leave ourselves into bad situations.
The keyboard gangsters.
Keyboard gangsters are in full effect.
I had a chance to talk with Tom Izzo a couple of times, late last night, early this morning after he found out, and you know, he's always been the biggest opponent to social media, and I couldn't argue with much of what he was saying at that point. And when you see what it can do to a young life, people don't understand what they're doing, what they're saying, and the impact, just as they don't realize that nothing is guaranteed. There are no assurances, and what can be here today can be gone tomorrow. That's why when Marcus Bingham Jr., of all people, told the team last night, hey, go and call your parents, go and call people you love. Tom Izzo was stunned by that. He said, who said that?
Yeah, he did.
Said that was Markey.
Right.
And the players did exactly that. We heard from Xavier Tillman, we heard from Kyle Arns, that they paid attention to that.
They did. They took that to heart. And like we said before, what people don't know is that people may say, well, it's unfortunate that was the brother of a player. But if you were around this program over the last 2 years, you would see Zachary and his brother Kai just like you would see Cassius. They interacted with everyone. They were literally an extended part of the team. So it was a huge loss. And I think from that huge loss, it gives us all an opportunity to reflect, reassess our relationships, and not take this moment for granted, because tomorrow is not promised, no matter who you are.
Exactly. And what's the lesson for us to learn in terms of interacting with other people? We had an incident yesterday when we were doing a Press Pass preview, and we were both a little steamed about it at the time, but we decided to let it go. and today it looks very trivial.
Right, we're talking about an incident we had with another person who lacked professionalism and what they were doing, but Jack and I were able to reflect on it, and thankfully we both were in the same frame of mind to support each other, and I think we have to do more of that, because what happens is when you let that one issue fester, it becomes a trigger for other things, and you wonder why you're spouting out all these issues to people who are not deserving of that wrath, and I think that's something we have to do on a regular basis. Also, reassessing our relationship with our phone. That's something I talk to my athletes about, my clients that I work with. In most cases, most of us sleep with our phone within 1 arm's distance of our face.
Yes.
Because it's by our head, it's close by, and we justify that for the sake of an emergency and family. I get that. But what happens, Jack, is you get this 360-degree cycle of social media, and many people aren't in a position to be able to let that stop. It just comes down on them, and it just subliminally all these negative, toxic things continue to go, and they don't get a chance to reconnect with who they are. So I think it's important that we look at our interpersonal relationships, making sure that we're talking to people, that we can put the phones down at a time and stay connected.
Tonight was a very positive night for the Michigan State basketball family, but what do people have to keep in mind, Lindsay, moving forward? Because sometimes these things get harder before they get easier.
Those were Coach Izzo's word at the press conference. It's going to get harder before it gets better. And he talked about the adrenaline. A night like tonight, you're not going to always have the day of or within 24 hours 20-some-odd thousand people there supporting you.
Yeah.
It's going to be an individual, day-by-day process, and I think what we have to realize is that you have to try to stay in the moment as best as possible. I also like what Coach Izzo said about we're going to play with broken hearts.
Yeah.
Instead of downplaying the emotion of how they feel.
Yeah.
If you feel a certain way, be that way, and I think we all can stand and learn a lesson from that.
There was a basketball game here, and it meant a lot to Cassius, obviously. He played the most minutes on the team, and his points, 17. That was tied for the game high with Xavier Tillman. 11 assists. And people say, well, what does it matter if you get an assist against Binghampton? Frankly, we're on a little bit of a countdown, because he does have a chance to be the first player in college basketball history to have 2,000 points and 1,000 assists. And when you get 11 against Binghampton, that means makes up for when you get 4 against Kentucky.
Right.
So we'll be watching this closely as the season progresses, and we'll be watching the growth of this team. Talk about Marcus Bingham, but he did some things again on the court for the second game that people say, wow, maybe he's really going to turn into something. And you look at Thomas Kithier, the two of them together at the 4 spot, which was a concern, and they wind up 10 for 14 from the field, 23 points, 9 rebounds, 3 block shots. That's not the worry.
No, right. So what would really worry you going forward?
Well, it'd be nice to have Joshua Langford back, but there's nothing they can do about that. Again, they didn't know if they were going to have Kyle Arns when the season started.
That's true.
And they don't know from game to game. With the back flares up, there will probably be a couple of games where he can't go.
Right. But even with all those things and the tragedy that's been witnessed, I think here's a singular event that will allow the team to draw itself closer together, to get more on the same frequency, and to be able to work hard to overcome whatever obstacle comes their way. So we may see this as being a noteworthy event going forward for their success this season.
Let me give you one other individual, and then something that happened team-wise tonight that I think certainly worth noting. Aaron Henry came up to Tom before the game and said, I'm bringing it tonight. And that was after he had gotten in foul trouble early against Kentucky, probably cost his team a win by sitting out the last 17 minutes of the first half with silly fouls.
Right.
Instead, he got 16 points, 4 steals, 3 block shots, played tremendous defense. Again, they're playing Binghamton, we get that.
Right.
But he did some things and showed the focus that he does not always show.
Right. No, I think that's important. He showed a lot of maturity going forward, and when you have a player who can step up and say, this is what I'm going to do, and do it, as a coach, you can only be happy. That means they're getting it, and they're learning, and they're moving forward, and you can only hope for the best with that.
Something else, I think, from a statistical perspective, I've never seen this from a Tom Izzo team in 25 years. They had 25 assists and 4 turnovers. I've seen the 25 assists. I've never seen the 4 turnovers. And the fact that Michigan State was so focused tonight. No lapses in concentration. Yeah, Binghampton hit a couple 3-point shots that you would want them to take.
Right.
But in terms of dumb plays, there weren't a lot of dumb plays in this game.
The guys were focused. I mean, you talk about an incident that has everyone's attention. You have everyone's heart beating on the same note, everyone having a singular focus. And also, whatever personal thoughts these guys may have had, personal goals, personal expectations, they're out the window because their heart is all focused on one person.
Now Michigan State hitting the road. Thursday, the game against Seton Hall in Newark. And Seton Hall's a terrific team, top 10 team in a lot of people's minds. And we'll have to see how Michigan State responds and if it plays the way it did tonight or if it plays more the way it did last Tuesday.
I have a feeling, Jack, that we're going to look back and see a crest going forward as far as how Michigan State's continue to stay locked in, to stay focused, and a team like Seton Hall, to be honest, they may not have a chance.
Yeah. We have another Press Pass preview for you Tuesday. And that will be after Mark D'Antonio and some of the players who will be at the north end of Spartan Stadium. Don't remember who they play next week. It's some team in Washington County.
It's in the area. It's in the area.
Michigan State has won 4 of the last 5 in Ann Arbor. It's won 5 straight games in this series in odd-numbered years. But based on what we saw yesterday in that epic collapse against Illinois, losing that game 37-34 after having a 21-point lead to start the 4th quarter.
Right.
Hard to imagine this team summoning the strength to go in there and pull another major upset, but hey, that's what these series are all about. We've seen strange things happen.
We've seen stranger things happen. You can only hope that they could get focused like they need to. Not to say a win against Michigan salvages the season, but it definitely changed the talking points and changed the narrative going forward.
Absolutely. We'll be back with that and much more over the weekend. And we'll be back with another Press Pass next Sunday night. And you'll be back on a panel with us as we move forward. Jack Ebling here with Lindsay Huddleston, live from Breslin Center.